The Caballo Cave incident happened on February 5th, 1994. On the cold morning of February 5th, 1994, 40-year-old Leland Smith went on a youth group excursion to Caballo Cave in New Mexico. Leland wasn't just a passive participant, he was a devoted volunteer and a former police officer with a lot of experience working with youngsters. Steve Peer, an experienced caver, put together the expedition, which included both students and adult helpers. Folks thought Caballo Cave was rather safe, especially for folks who were just beginning out caving. The path was well known and had been utilized by hundreds of people without any concerns. After they were done exploring, the group went to a region of the cave called the Chimney and proceeded to climb up to the entrance. There were a lot of rocks and unstable rock in the chimney, which made it a narrow vertical path. There was a huge, sloping slab of broken granite toward the top of this chimney. It was a fractured formation that had become a normal element of the course. Steve Peer and a few of the kids had already gotten over the chimney. Leland stayed behind to aid the other kids. Leland was helping one student up the slab when something bad happened. A big block of granite that everyone assumed was stable broke free without warning. It toppled on Leland, who fell into the chimney and was held down by its weight. A few seconds later, another slab fell, confirming what was about to happen to him. When they heard the noise, Steve and another adult ran back into the chimney. What they found was scary. Leland was trapped under hundreds of pounds of stones and couldn't move. His back, knees and neck were broken, which was really awful. Leland died soon away. It was impossible to dislodge the stones since they were so tightly wedged inside the crack. The group was so afraid and angry that they left the cave to get help. The next day, a team of experts came back to get Leland's body. The cave site was quite unstable and needed shoring equipment to protect it from sliding down even more. Investigators discovered that the slab that killed Leland was held in place by a thin layer of mineral called flowstone, which made it look solid when it wasn't. Things got even worse when rescuers found out that Leland, who used to be a police officer, had a loaded semi-automatic gun in a shoulder holster. A police officer had to safely take the pistol away before the recovery could continue. It took hours for rescuers to lift rocks one at a time all night. Our other slab broke off and smacked a team member at one point, but it only left a slight bruise. After a long day of meticulous digging, Leland's body was ultimately freed and transported out of the cave with care. Sadly, it was ironic that the slab that killed him was part of a walkway that new people had been using for years. In November 1992, the Banshee Hole tragedy happened. 4 men entered Banshee Hole, a vertical cave that is hard to detect in the woods of eastern Tennessee, in November 1992. Banshee Hole wasn't the most dangerous cave in the area, but it wasn't for anyone who had never been in a cave before. It was well known for its beautiful 95-foot entry shaft and winding tunnels. One of the people in the group, who would later be named the victim in official reports, had never been in a vertical cave before. He had only read guidebooks and practiced tying knots on trees before, but he was still thrilled and determined to go caving for real. He had just acquired some basic gear and said he'd be the first to rappel down the shaft. He used a rope that was fastened to something above the cave mouth to drop himself into the dark. The others followed one by one until they were all approximately 100 feet below. The group proceeded through a lot of little rooms and crawl spaces until finally reaching to a vast area they had never seen before. In one area, they observed something that looked like a buried tunnel, although it was mostly hidden by flowstone. It was interesting, but the party had to start climbing because the sun was going down. They decided to do one at a time, so the rope wouldn't get too tight. It took a lot of planning to climb out. The inexperienced climber once more offered to go first, but there was a big problem with how he set it up. He had built a chest harness out of nylon webbing that fit snugly around his upper body. This was not a good approach to evenly spread the weight. He used 2 mechanical ascenders, called Jumars, and a pair of foot slings to carefully climb up. He made things worse by using a carabiner to link his improvised harness directly to the rope, which put all of his weight on his chest. He made slow but steady progress initially. The gang looked at him as the light from his headlamp got brighter, but he came into something called the lip that was only 10 feet below the surface. He had to use his upper body strength to get over the sharp ledge. He tried to get over it, but the chest harness got tighter. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't move. He wasn't able to move. His friends heard shallow, strained breathing coming from the hole. 2 of them climbed up to aid because they were scared. One pushed from below while the other tried to adjust the harness, but moving around made him feel worse each time. One of the people in the group went out of the cave and asked for aid immediately away. About 40 minutes later, a rescue team showed up. After rappelling down the shaft, they used a pulley system to bring the victim over the lip. As soon as his body slid over the edge, it went slack. They started CPR right away, but it was too late. The man may have had a heart attack because he was in a position that made it impossible for him to breathe, which can happen when the harness pressure compresses the lungs for a long time. At 1:52 a.m., the subject was officially declared deceased. On February 12, 2011, the Ellison's cave disaster occurred. On February 12, 2011, 10 students from the University of Florida, 5 boys and 5 girls, went on what they thought would be a fun excursion to go caving. The trip was led by 20-year-old Grant Lockenbach. It was only a week till his birthday. Before this, Grant and a few other people had gone caving. They were traveling to Ellison's Cave, which is atop Pigeon Mountain in Walker County, Georgia. Ellison's Cave is one of the deepest caverns in North America, going down more than 1,000 feet. The fantastic pit is also in the park. It's the country's deepest freefall drop and is almost twice as tall as the Statue of Liberty. The students arrived in Georgia a day early and made reservations at a motel near the mountain. They put on comfy clothes and brought stuff like helmets, headlamps, and ropes to get ready for the trip the next morning. Unfortunately, they forgot their phones in their enthusiasm, which would be a terrible mistake. As they went up the mountain, the temperature dropped. No one was ready for the cold weather. After an hour of arduous walking, the gang got at one of the cave's small openings. They squeezed in one at a time and were soon in the dark, with only their flashlights to help them find their way. The inside was beautiful in a natural way, but the cold temperature made things tougher. In the summer, the water in the cave is usually 56 degrees. In the winter, it's a lot cooler. One of the students' backpacks slipped into a vertical hole known as the warm-up pit while the group was investigating. There is a running waterfall in the pit that makes it incredibly cold. It is 125 feet deep. Even though his friends warned him not to, Grant offered to fetch it back. He kept saying that he will be okay. The gang tapped him on the back as he clipped onto the rope and fell down. As he moved down, the sound of the cool waterfall increased louder. Halfway down the pit, Grant started to shiver uncontrollably. He tried to stay out of the cold spray, but things quickly went wrong. His harness or rope wasn't working right. He became stuck in the waterfall and couldn't get out. Grant yelled, but it was impossible to hear him above the sound of the surf crashing. Michael, another student, clipped in and rushed to help Grant after hearing the alert. He found him wet, freezing, and barely able to speak. Michael shouted an update to the team above, but soon found himself in the same freezing water. Panic spread. Some students stayed to talk to the boys. Others ran down the mountain for help. At 2:19 p.m., they finally called 911. Grant and Michael's voices grew weaker together. Friends yelled prayers and support to keep them awake, but the cold drained their strength. After 30 agonizing minutes, the boys went silent. Rescuers arrived at 3:30 p.m. and descended. Both Grant and Michael hung limp in their harnesses. No pulses. The tragedy shocked everyone. A fun weekend had turned into heartbreak. The cold, lack of equipment, and underestimating the danger all played a role. Caving can be thrilling, but it demands preparation, training, and respect for nature. The stories of Leland Smith, the Banshee Hole, and the University of Florida students are chilling reminders that even familiar places can turn deadly. If this story moved you, subscribe and drop your suggestions for future episodes in the comments.